It's Monday, and I'd like to welcome you back to the Joust About Careers podcast, where you can learn about careers from the people who are actually in the trenches every day. I'm your host, Brian Brott, and I'm a career advisor and English teacher at Buren High School who wants to see all people make good career and life decisions. My guest today is Justin Tiell, a UX UI developer for Betco Corporation. Justin shares about what UX and UI are and why they're important to all of us, even if we've never heard of them, how his visual communication technology degree from BGSU has helped him, why it is important for developers to have portfolios sharing their work, why curiosity is important for a developer, and much more. I hope that what Justin shares today will help all of you make better career decisions and have great career journeys. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Joust About Careers podcast. And today we have 2003 Van Buren graduate Justin Tiell with us. And he is a UX UI developer at Betco Corporation. So he's going to be talking a little bit about that career field and what he does and also how he ended up where he is today. So Justin, thank you very much for joining us. And I'd love to have you start by just talking a little bit about what are UX and UI and what does a typical day look like for you in that field?
Yeah. So, happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me on. So UX and UI, they get kind of like combined a lot, but they can basically be separated as well. And I think UI is like the one most people most familiar with. That's user interface, right? So like when you use your apps and stuff, that's the buttons, that's the colors, look and feel. And then UX is the user experience. So that can be many things from, how fast does the page load? How do people feel using your app? Even to things like, Disney World, a good example of like they've perfected the user experience from when you get there to your little armband saying your name to, how they do the ordering for food and stuff like that. So, generally they're combined a lot, especially like in the web world, because your user interface is basically your user experience and you want them to both be, well designed and well developed. And so my role typically is, I basically build the apps. So a lot of the times I work in a small enough company that I will end up starting the design, in a mock-up, getting reviews and some tests there. And then I go into the code and develop the final product.
Interesting. So is a lot of that done by yourself, or obviously you talked about the mock-ups. I'm sure you get feedback on those. How much of your day do you spend by yourself with a computer, and how much of your day are you typically with other people?
Yeah. So it really just depends on what part of the progress or what part of the process we're in. So in the beginning, a lot more time with people, asking questions, trying to figure out what we want to solve, what problems people are having, where the pain points. And so whether or not I have access to the final users, or I'm interfacing usually with like marketing and how they wanted to display their product. So the beginning, a lot more like in the mock-ups, getting feedback, quick back and forth. And then once we kind of agree on the mock-ups, I can go into the code and spend a lot more time alone in the code, getting that ready for people to review then.
How many apps would you say you've created in your career?
So apps is a strong word. I do like more websites.
Okay.
And so I spent a lot of time at Root, almost like 12, 13, almost since I've been out of BG. And there I basically just worked on the marketing website for that company. And so we'd rebuild it every few years. I did a lot of actually like SEO and marketing things on that side. And then the last couple of years I spent back in like the programming team. And I did build, I don't know, like a couple different, like I guess would say like web apps, and then a couple other websites and stuff there. So yeah, quite a few for the little bit I did in the actual programming side. But I, again, spent a lot of time in marketing in my career.
Right. So you talked about SEO there, search engine optimization.
Correct.
a term that wasn't around 30 years ago.
Right.
UX, UI, probably, I don't know. Haven't heard it since the last or until the last few years.
Yeah.
Are these things that you think are going to be around a long time? Are these career areas where there's going to be a lot of growth because of our reliance on the internet, computers, et cetera?
Yeah. If you had to ask me a couple years ago, it might have been a different answer now than like the AI experience is definitely like sort of mixing this up because yeah, we're always going to need apps and we're always going to need ways to interact and get to data. Um, Again, the AI situation is very interesting to see like where does that come from? Because like now I can just ask a robot to get me the data versus like, worrying about where I rank on Google or worrying about the actual page design. It's just pulling stuff out of it. But like, take AI out of it. I think, yeah, I mean, I think people expect really good user experience. And I think, whether we do it on purpose or not, like if a company doesn't have a good looking website, we instantly think, well, they're probably not up to staff or up to
Right.
what I need them to do. So
Right.
it's definitely very important to have a good user experience and really good UI. So I hope my job's safe for a while, but again, AI is definitely a little interesting, but I've been using it quite a bit. So
Right. Right. Yeah. How can we make it a positive as
yeah,
opposed to something that's going to detract from people's careers and so forth?
yeah,
And I definitely know from personal experience, but also working with students, we absolutely demand that our web pages, those things better load in a hurry, or we
yeah,
get impatient in a hurry. So I think that's interesting. So when
yep.
you were in high school, is this something you ever foresaw for yourself, or did this really come about after you had left high school?
Yeah. So in high school, I definitely liked programming. I didn't do quite a lot. Um, just dabbled a little bit. And then I think my last year in high school, I was like, what am I gonna do? And I was like, I think I like building web pages. And so that stuck. And I really enjoyed it. Been building websites ever since and always dabbling in that sort of area. So I don't know that I thought of what that exact role would be, but I always wanted to sort of be quote unquote the webmaster for a big company or something like that. So yeah, I think I kind of lucked out that I just kept following the path. And again, like SEO, to your point, wasn't a term then, or at least none that people used and stuff like that. So I've, went through all that and social media and, again, marketing was just a big focus of my career. So a lot of what that entailed. But yeah, I did want to build websites. So I'm still good there.
Right. Now, would you say a lot of what you were able to do was self-taught? I see you went to Owens, you went to BGSU and VCT Interactive Media. I'd love to
Yep.
hear more about that. How much of this did you learn on your own? How much did you learn through schooling?
Yeah, I think especially for development, like you have to learn it essentially on your own. You can take courses and stuff like that, but to get um good at it at all, you basically have to like really kind of teach yourself, spend, hours looking at examples or trying to figure out something that's causing an issue. Um, and so I think school, like usually when we had the programming, especially web development, I didn't really quite learn that much in the classes. So I kind of flew past those, but I really did learn a lot of like design, and VCT was very helpful. It's visual communication technology. Um, and it kind of gave you a jack of all trades mindset coming out of there. So I could edit video, I could do Photoshop, I of course could do the websites. Just had a better idea of like fonts and design and stuff like that. So like that's what I more learned from college was the design parts of things and like how it all fits together. And again, like I could just kind of open up a video editor and edit it, even though that wasn't what I thought I was going to be doing someday. So
Right. Right.
yeah,
Now, I would argue that no experience is ever pointless. And, you know, you worked at Taco Bell for 8 years, starting in high school
yep,
and even beyond high school. And obviously, you weren't creating web pages there.
right.
But is there anything that you can look back and say, wow, I gained this from that experience that has helped me get to where I want to be today?
I think Especially working in fast food or service industry, you always get a humbling experience. And I think so one thing that gives you is just like an appreciation for everybody, which then I think helps you when you are in work because like everyone is important. And so there's that of like just, making sure that I don't think I'm above anybody or better than anybody.
Right.
But also too, like going through that, like sometimes I still put on that hat of like, what would make the end user's job the easiest because like they're the ones that are stressed out doing the work in the middle of a lunch rush or something versus sitting at a computer drinking some coffee. Like how do I make sure that everyone's lives are better based on what I'm creating?
Right. And yeah, in that setting of fast food, you definitely have people that know what they want, and it's your job to provide that. And that's really what you're still doing today is you create those web pages. People need that information and need to access all of that. So you talked a little bit about, Owens and BGSU on your LinkedIn page. It talks about skills, Next.js, HTML, React.js, cascading style sheets, JavaScript, PHP, APIs, all kinds of acronyms.
Yep.
How much of that is absolutely essential for someone getting into this career field to know from the start? How much of that is just you need to go in there, get the experience? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I think if you're going to be a UX UI designer, then like that's sort of a different path. And that's a bit more of like getting really pixel perfect designs, really getting a lot of information about how to like do user testing and that kind of thing. And where I've been focusing more is the development side. And I think like HTML, especially if you want to do like anything web-based, HTML and CSS are like a must-have. Like you need to sort of understand what those are, what they're doing. And then at least for where the technology is now, like JavaScript's kind of like your base thing to start learning. Get really comfortable with JavaScript, and then a lot of other frameworks will kind of like fit in. So like Next.js is a framework. There's like Svelte. I don't know if Nuxt is actually a framework, but there's lots of frameworks inside the JavaScript ecosystem, and it gets kind of crazy. But and if you're not necessarily going straight into like web development, really just picking any language and just learning it really, really well will make it so you can go to something else a lot quicker. That's the main thing I realized as well. It's like, don't keep jumping around to different platforms. Make sure you kind of pick one and like stick with it and learn it really well, because all of programming's techniques and stuff can be pretty cross-relevant to things.
So do you think there'll ever be a day, or do you think it'd be useful for schools? When we talk about foreign languages, we talk about Spanish, French, etc. Do you think there'd ever be a day or a need for every student to go walk out of school with at least a little bit of coding knowledge?
Again, that one, so back when we were in school, like it's funny because we had MySpace pages and most people knew how to do some HTML and CSS because you wanted to design your MySpace page. And so it's, I want to say yes, just because like it's a good thing to know. And I think like having some sort of base programming class is always good to get people familiar with it. I believe we had one or something close to it. We had a web development class, or at least part of it, with Mr. Heitkamp, I believe, taught that.
Right.
But I think, yeah, just understanding programming just at a simple base, at least to get, maybe some students who weren't interested in before maybe would find it more interesting. But I think to your point, yes, like I think like just some sort of base knowledge. And I think if you can let people dive deeper, for sure, like that'd be cool to have like offer in high school.
Is there anything about your education that you've received, whether it's high school, college, etc., what maybe has been the most useful, the thing that you absolutely use every day?
I don't know that I've learned like one particular thing. I think especially in design classes, the most important thing was to like basically never accept your first results. So especially in design, there's a couple of times where they would make you draw like a mock-up like 100 different times. It just to get you real, like one, to like you start to get new ideas, but also like your first few are always basically pretty bad. And so never getting too hung up on your own ideas and always willing to be like start over, start from fresh. come at it a different way. Like I think that's the main thing that I use quite a bit in my day-to-day job, just because, the world's changing so much. You can't just keep latching on to what you did before. So,
Right.
yeah.
As you think about people who are getting ready to leave high school and head out to college, into the workforce, et cetera, if they wanted to go into UX, UI, development, et cetera, what advice would you give them? Would you say, hey, go get a 4-year degree, go get a 2-year degree, go get your certifications, or is it a mix of those things? What would your advice be to them?
Yeah. I mean, I think places always still like to have a 4-year degree. Like you don't need it, but places do like that, whether or not it's super focused on UX UI development or not. I think that's a whole different thing. Um, but the one thing to start doing is like start sort of, if you want to be, especially like UX UI developer, start to build a portfolio. Um, that's like the major thing. Either, even if it's just like mockups, you didn't build any sites, but you're still like creating mockups, and or it is like you're coding things. GitHub's a great place to sort of like store your code so people can see it. But I think starting a portfolio is like one of the most important things because people always want to see some sort of example of your work.
Is there a certain, so you talked about GitHub as a
Yeah.
place to show coding. As far as the overall portfolio, are there any places you would suggest as far as where they could go post that work? Or is that more of a on their LinkedIn page or something more
Yeah.
specific?
Yeah. I mean, I think like you can use like lots of social medias, Instagram, depending on what, especially if you're doing like design work, a lot of those work out really well. Like there's one called Dribbbl. Um, for code, like GitHub's your main one, I think. The other thing you can do, like it's pretty easy, especially if you're going to web development, you should have a website. I don't think mine's great, but I do have one that I use to get my current position. But like, I mean, that's it's an easy win. It's easy to kind of get up there, just have something on the internet to show that you can do what you're saying you can do. So,
Right.
yeah.
So any specific characteristics that a person might want to have to be heading into this career and be on the road to success?
Yeah. I think mostly like curiosity. Um, I don't know how many times that I'm like looking over people's shoulders, how they use phones, like not trying to be a creep, but like really just curious of how they use it. What are they like, what are they doing on it? How easy it is for them. Also collaboration, again, like you're going to have a bunch of people giving you feedback on your designs. And so you kind of have to either be like, I don't say thick skin, but be willing to accept um, different edits and stuff to your design. Like you can't have it can't be your baby. It's everyone's. You're all working together on it. Um, and lots of research, especially when you're developing, like you're going to run into issues. You've got to find ways to get the answer. And I think like, yeah, empathetic too, because like again, like you want to put yourself in the user's shoes. Um, how are they going to be using the app? Like, because again, like they're not going to be sitting in an office in a perfect condition. They might be out on the road with low latency or on an older phone or just, you never know what they're doing. So you need to kind of think about that part of the side of the experience.
I am sure there are just so many, like you said, different angles that you have to consider when you're creating something like that, that I'm sure, yeah, would blow our minds that uh, how much work actually goes into all of those things. And we just, we want something that just immediately happens. And there's
Right.
probably 1,000 things that have to happen for that to immediately open. Is there
Yep.
anything you're most proud of creating?
I mean, I was really proud of my work at Roots. I spent about 12 years, maybe just 10 in the marketing of like making that like my baby. Did like I just got to like really experience like all the ends of it, of including like social media and Google Analytics tracking, SEO ranking, all that kind of bit. So I really just enjoyed taking care of like that website. And now I'm really excited where I'm at now. Like we're building like latest tech sort of products. So I'm really curious to see what I do here in the next few years. So I'm really excited about where that's going.
and having excitement about your career definitely makes it a lot easier to go. And I can
Yep.
tell just everything you're talking about, you see absolute purpose in what you are doing, and you see that as your purpose for being here, which I think is awesome. And I hope all of my students will recognize their purpose and be able to pursue that. As you look at your life after high school, everything you've learned about life, everything you've learned about careers, is there anything that you know now that you really wish you had known when you were still in high school?
When I was still in high school, that would be that, high school probably doesn't matter as much as you think it does. That's the main advice. I don't know how many times you've heard that probably, but
Right.
no, I think like just, enjoy the ride, like, and yeah, don't take everything too seriously. But plan for the future, because you're probably gonna have a future, and you need to make sure that you're ready for that as well. And most people are worried about themselves more than they could be worried about what you're doing or how you're acting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
But
good.
yeah.
So, Justin, I really appreciate you sharing all of this about your career.
Mhm.
And I will have to, if you ever do create an app or a site or anything that becomes really well known, make sure you share it with me, because I want to go look at it and see it.
Will do.
But yeah, I hope that maybe some students will reach out to you to
Sure.
find out more about this career field, if it's something they want to pursue. And good luck as you continue down your career path.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for watching and listening to this episode of the Joust About Careers podcast. I hope you learned valuable information from this career story. And to be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for watching. And as always, this is the place to go to learn just about careers.